Welcome to the Atlanta Jazz Notes podcast, where we profile the many people who make the Atlanta jazz scene unique and incredible. I'm your host, Matt Miller. This week, I had the pleasure of interviewing a man who is not only one of the greatest pianists in Atlanta, but in the world. Louis Heriveaux has performed with artists such as Jimmy Heath, Nina Freelon, and Russell Malone, among many others, and leads his own groups at performances throughout Atlanta and the world. In 2016, he released his debut album, Triadic Episode, which received rave reviews and a Grammy nomination. In this interview, the pianist talks about growing up in Queens, New York, Tampa, Florida, and Griffin, Georgia before he moved to Atlanta, how he developed his prodigious technique on piano, his creative process, and many other topics. So, without further ado, here is Atlanta Jazz Notes Podcast, Episode 1, an in-depth profile of the great Louis Heriveaux. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
It's great to see you.
Okay, man. Good to see you too, brother.
Man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Hey, no problem, man.
Yeah.
No problem.
So I'm starting this website where it's about the Atlanta jazz scene, really. So in addition to playing, I love to do the journalism thing too, write about music. And I wanted to make this website where kind of the main focus would be interviewing people who are really important on the Atlanta jazz scene. So that's where you come in.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, man. So
somebody thinks so.
Man, lots of people. Lots of people. But you do it.
Thank you for that. This is something good, very good to do, needed.
I think so too, and I think because I look around and there's just bits and pieces of information here and there on the internet, but it's hard to find stuff sometimes. I mean, about the great players like yourself. So if I can add a little bit to that, I'd be happy. So if you don't mind, I'll just ask you some questions and you can kind of respond however you see fit. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Right. So I want to get some biographical information. You're from Queens originally. Yeah.
Yep.
How long did you live there?
My parents moved away when I was about 3 years old. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you moved down to the Atlanta area then?
No, I moved to Tampa.
Oh, really?
Tampa, Florida. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Tampa. And then at what point did you come to the Atlanta area?
Ninth grade. Yeah.
Oh,
just
cool.
starting high school.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I heard an interview where you were talking about going to high school in Griffin. Is that right?
Yeah, in Griffin, Georgia.
For the whole high school.
A little outside. Yeah, a little outside the Atlanta area, I guess. Yeah.
It is, and it's definitely culturally different than Atlanta.
Right, that's true.
It's like a small town.
That's true.
Yeah. So what was that like?
That was a culture shock at the time because I was a little private school kid in Tampa in a very diverse kind of community, and not like diverse like black and white, but it was like people from the islands, people from so it was Spanish, white, black, and everything in my private school and in the environment I lived in Tampa. Mm-hmm. When I got to Griffin, first of all, I could not understand. I think it's different today, but back then I could not even understand what half the people were saying for a while. And it was a lot different, man.
Yeah.
And at first I hated it, then I grew to be okay with it, because all my friends were back in Tampa. Yeah.
Gotcha. And there was a music thing there. I know you were saying in the interview that you were mostly self-taught. Is that right?
No. I've taken classical since I started playing piano at 3, and by the time I was 5, my mom took me to. I was the youngest person accepted by Dr. Edberg at Tampa University.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was great, man. I got pretty good at classical quick under her,
Well, that explains the technique and everything like that. So that kind of helped get that technique.
Yeah, definitely
so strong. Yeah, and your mom played.
She played enough to get me started. Yeah, she played some. very little, but some, yeah.
Gotcha.
Uh,
And were they?
she was a teacher also, so
Oh, really?
she taught it to me kind of as a game, and you know, and I don't ever remember not playing piano. So yeah,
Gotcha. And what she taught music or did she teach a different subject?
nah, an elementary school teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she
Cool.
did not teach music. No,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And so were you hearing jazz as a kid? Were you hearing that music in the house?
No, no. Matter of fact, I used to watch Mr. Rogers, and I used to watch like Charlie Brown and stuff, and tell my mom throughout my life, "Wow, I want to play music like that." But you know, we weren't in touch with any jazz scene or anything, so I was a little kid. She didn't really. I don't think she really took that serious of me wanting to play. But I didn't even know it was jazz or whatever. I just liked that music, and she did it a few times, try to find music like that, but it just never materialized. Yeah,
Hmm.
it wasn't until I got to high school, and I made it to a program called Governor's Honors. Which do you know about Governor's
Yeah,
Honors?
because I'm from New Jersey and we had the same thing there.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay,
And you auditioned
yeah,
for it, and then it was kind of all across the state. I
right,
assume.
right, right, right. Yeah, so I made it to that in classical music, and as an
Oh.
elective, I took jazz. Uh, you had an elective within your major, and then you had a general elective. And I took jazz, and that's where I found out what was going on about improvisation. It was shocking, like
Hmm.
really, because I thought everything was written out.
Yeah, yeah.
My only experience to them was written music, classical, and maybe playing in the Adventist church, which at that time was hymns and anthems. So that stuff was written out too. You know,
Hmm.
it
So
was
how do you make that jump between written music and jazz? How did you figure out the harmonies and was this just from listening or did you have a teacher in that regard too?
no, I didn't have a teacher. What happened is at the program, Governor's Honors, there was a teacher named Bob Greenhall. I think he kind of set up the path, and it clicked with me what he was saying and how to go about uh, listening, and then trying to play along, learning stuff from records and that kind of thing, and it clicked with me. So I was excited about it when I went back home from the program. I
Hmm.
was very excited about it. So I come from the rest of the summer. I would just practice and learn stuff from records. Uh, I bought a real book, but I had nobody there to explain chord symbols and stuff to me. But I actually learned that on my own by realizing that the melody that these notes went with this melody, so this kind of chord must mean this,
Hmm.
and and it was consistent, and
Wow.
that's how I learned
Yeah.
about changes, and then I started trying to mimic. I couldn't hear that. My favorite cat was Oscar Peterson. I couldn't
Hmm.
really hear well enough to transcribe his solos on my own yet, like that. So I got into learning language from bass players because it was still good language, but it was slow enough that I could hear and be kind of accurate with what they were playing. So I would listen to Oscar Peterson, but I would learn Ray Brown's part of Ray Brown's solo,
And
or
the solo and the bass line, I assume?
not really a bass line, just a solo.
Really?
And
That's cool.
Paul Chambers was one of my favorite cats for
Sure.
solos too. Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, but I went home on my own and practicing enough that I made it to Jazz All State that year, and
Hmm.
that was my senior year though,
Yeah.
and that was the first time of me playing jazz, and I made it to Jazz All State. So I
Very
was like,
cool.
wow, yeah, that was cool. It clicked with me.
Yeah, it sounds like
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
Specifically, like what do you have like a couple recordings that were really instrumental? Was it Oscar Peterson stuff or was it?
It was Oscar Peterson stuff.
Yeah.
I had one Oscar Peterson record in the beginning that I went home and bought. It was a compilation by Compact Jazz, but Ace Johnson and Griffin, I couldn't get CLK at the time,
Mm-hmm.
WCLK. They used to play more, that's what I should say, more straight ahead, more the kind of stuff that that you would want to study. Anyway, I didn't get WCLK and Griffin at that time.
Yeah.
But Ace Johnson, every Saturday night, he had a show on the public radio
Yeah, on
station.
AB, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
WAB. Yeah.
Right. And I used to record that on cassette tape. And I used to have cassettes and cassettes and cassettes of that stuff. So most of the time I didn't even know I didn't know who a lot of the artists were.
Wow.
So yeah, Anyway,
That's a great way to learn.
that's my beginnings.
That's like the old school way to learn too. Just by
Oh
listening,
yeah.
listening.
I
Yeah.
had nobody to play with either. That was the other
I was curious about
sad
that
thing.
too, because there were not other people playing jazz,
Playing jazz,
in high school or something like that.
No.
And that so you just kind of developed a practice routine at that point, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
And is that like were you practicing scales and stuff like that too? Or were you putting that all together? Was it mostly based around figuring out the bass parts and then the harmonies and things like that? I'm just curious your process.
I'll tell you what happened. This is revealing.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is I fell in love with improvisation and swing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would practice. I was really focused on learning how to solo and bebop lines. I loved the sound of bebop. So that got to be my strongest kind of. And that confused people, I think. So when I got to college and when I got on the Atlanta scene and started to sit in a little bit around there was a jam session at what's that? JR Crickets in the West End. I used to come to. They used to have jazz there. The drummer from Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh yeah, the guy who lives around here, Sonny Emery.
Yeah, Sonny Emery Sr.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he was a saxophone player, bad
Really?
saxophone
I didn't
player,
really know that. Okay.
and he ran a jam session over there. And he used to be excited about seeing me, come to play or something, So
Yeah.
my solo was strong, but everything else was weak. So that confused a lot of people.
And
I had a lot of holes in my plan.
when you say your soloing was strong, you mean like the feel, like the time feel and the swing, or
Time feel and the swing, and I actually developed some bebop on
yeah,
my own,
yeah.
pretty young. Yeah.
It's funny because that's usually different than what most younger people.
Yeah,
Most younger people have some
exactly.
vocabulary. I can play my major scales, but the feel. I was
Right.
going to ask you about that specifically. Just like, do you attribute your swing feel and stuff like that just to listening and to really internalizing that, or how do you? It's something you can't really. It's hard to teach. So I was curious how you teach that, or what your approach to having a correct feel, like a swing feel.
Well, I think I did something by accident that actually was very useful, and I do teach it. I tell my students to do this. I try to, when I learn something, I try to match up exactly with the recording. So I would play it back with the recording and try to match the time and the feel exactly to whatever it was I transcribed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I remember spending time with that. And then I would listen to myself play it without the recording and see, was it the same feel? Did it feel the same? And if it didn't, I would go back and try to match up again, playing it back with that recording, which
Gotcha.
back then was a real tough process because it was tape. So
Yeah,
you
they
had
were
to
pain.
rewind the tape to the right spot or then wait for it to get to the right spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's value in trying to match it up directly with the recording, where you cannot hear a difference between when you play the notes, what notes are louder or softer or ghosted or whatever, and trying to get everything exactly to the feel that they were playing. Eh, I didn't even know what I was doing. That just made sense to me. And then what would happen sometimes is when I would play it without it, I noticed, oh no, when I'm playing it with it, it's easy to sound like the recording. So then I would play it without it and be like, oh, that's not quite it. So I'd go back and practice it till I could play it without the recording and it still had that same or close
Interesting.
to the same
Yeah.
feeling.
And having like that attention to detail, because I think a lot of people
Right.
miss that, like
Yeah.
that. Oh, I can play the notes. I can kind of approximate it, but I think you're talking about the ghosted notes and the different volume and there are
Yeah.
so many little subtleties in there that if
Exactly.
you miss, you lose the authenticity.
Exactly.
Were
Exactly.
you writing these out? You weren't writing them. You were just playing it back.
No, not at that time. It wasn't
Yeah.
until later I started to write stuff out. I
Yeah.
started to be around other jazz musicians from time to time, and through discussions, especially with older cats. Back then, see that's another thing. Back then, built into the music was reverence and openness and a want and a need to play with older cats. Like we
Mhm.
looked at older cats as and they didn't have to be. We didn't have access to the and down here to the cats on the records. They were in New York and stuff. So it was community. The older cats in the community, we really would go after them and talk to them and listen, and then they want to hear us play, and they were pretty blunt about things too, which I appreciate,
Yeah,
But I find it a very different scene today.
it
But
is. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
yeah,
It's not that long ago, but it has changed for sure.
yeah, right. It's not that long. It wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
Well, that
Uh,
brings me to a question about like your early, what are some early memorable gigs that you had? I mean, I was looking at your, people you played with, but who were some of the early, really memorable things that you did professionally?
er, the first cats I started playing was with Georgia State cats because I went
Yeah.
to Georgia State.
Hmm.
I can't remember many of the gigs at first, but when my memory really starts working was when I started to play at there was a jam session at the Amish Coffee House uh, that I started doing weekly,
Hmm.
and the cats that would come there and the cats I was playing with were really hungry,
Yeah.
so that was real conducive to me learning how to play, and because this would end up happening. All of us young cats at that time that I was around uh, were I like to say Wittenized. When I got hip to Wynton Marsalis, he at that time he was real strong about he still is, but he's calmed down a bit about being serious and really getting in that shed and basically he didn't maybe I don't remember if he exactly said this, but he basically influenced us to cut everything else out and really deal with this music if you wanted to be a serious musician. So man, and he talked about the amount of time to shed and all of that. So I had a regimen. I would get up and practice. I had a 5 hour regimen every morning. I got up and practiced my regimen, which included scales, included after my scales I would transcribe because my arms would be tired. Then I would spend time on whatever classical piece I was dealing with because I was at Georgia State and we had to take classical. And then I would spend time working on the solos I had transcribed, and then in free improvisation. And all of this was before class. I would go to school, And then after that, almost every day I would hook up with a few cats, and then we go somewhere to play or listen to music, and then we would end up at my friend and the bass player's house. He had a big basement area with a piano, and we would just play, and that would last till like 3 in the morning,
Yeah. So
almost
you're
every
always
day.
wow.
And
So it's just like I mean
and-
that amount of playing, just the sheer amount of playing.
right,
Yeah.
right. It was just all jazz music, all and man, it was a beautiful time because there was a lot of jazz going on in the city at that time,
And this is
in
like
the
this is like in the
'90s.
like earlier 90s, like before the Olympics.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool. And as you've gotten older, like do you still keep that up? Do you practice? I mean, few people can practice that much when it gets complicated when you get older. But like, are you still practicing with that kind of intensity now?
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know if
In
anyone I don't know
spurts.
if anyone does, but yeah,
Oh, okay. In spurts. I would like to,
yeah,
but when I'm inspired to practice, yeah, I can get close to that. But it's in spurts. Something takes me off of that.
mm-hmm.
Something in life will happen, take,
Sure.
and then I'll spend time not even practicing at all.
Mhm.
But I do need to practice.
Yeah, that's
There's a need for that. But
gotcha, gotcha.
yeah,
Some of the early gigs I was reading about were like with you play with do you play with Jimmy Heath for a little bit or did that was it Jimmy
yeah,
Heath and
that wasn't early though. My first kind of situation that I felt like was serious was Taurus Mateen used to live here.
really?
Yeah. Uh, and I got several weekly gigs with Taurus, and I was beginning to play with Taurus all the time. Taurus Mateen and Eric Vaughn. And that trio, I was a member of like two kind of units. One was Taurus Mateen and Eric Vaughn, and one was that same bass player, John Orman, and he moved away early. Cats wouldn't know him, and a drummer that passed away too. And I played with other people too, but that unit got to playing together so much that Cats would call one of us, me, Taurus, and Eric Vaughn, uh, for the whole trio. So
Mm-hmm.
it would be around town. It was cats like Eddie Davis, who was a great trumpet player, Audrey Shakir, uh, Grant Reed. It was a lot of bad cats here at the time, I got a chance to play and learn and be in those situations a lot,
Mm-hmm.
which kicked my butt a lot of nights. But then some nights, what happens is the tide started turning. I think they were digging me because I had a good feel and some strength in soloing and interacting and vibe and that kind of stuff. But because I didn't have a teacher and a real organized method, it was it it might not have sounded exactly all over the place when I played, but the method was not solid. My method for learning, so I had holes and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But
Yeah.
I had pretty good technique from studying classical with Jeff Hayden.
Oh,
He's
cool.
a great
He is, yeah.
man. He straightened out a lot of stuff in my technique and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not studying jazz at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was my teacher. The environment was my teacher.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. Unfortunately, the scene today isn't exactly set up like that.
That's not at
You
all.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, my mentor was Johnny O'Neill. So Johnny O'Neill, do you know
I
who he
love
is?
him. I
Oh,
love him.
okay. He used
I
to
mean,
be in town, man,
I
and
know.
play it.
I mean, I didn't know him. I should have known him a lot earlier, but
Uh,
I just, I saw him in New York a couple times, and I was just blown away.
right, right. He used to live here and play nightly at a place called Just Jazz.
Really?
Yeah, and
Where was that?
um, you know where I played at Houston's?
Yeah.
It was actually the next block. It's
Okay.
across the street from Fresh Market.
Gotcha. Right off of Peachtree Road, somewhere up
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Really? Yeah. I mean,
But it was
I
in the
wish
back.
I would love to see him every day. If I
Oh
heard him
yeah.
every day, I'd be happy.
Yeah, I didn't see him every day. It was a lot of
Yeah.
music, but I saw
Sure.
him a lot, and he would sit down and he would have me come on stage, and I could sit right next to him while he was playing. I used to just be watching it. I'm sure that had an impact on my playing.
Yeah.
And we sat down a few times, but he was so great, man. It was all over my head. And
Mhm.
I picked up some, I'm sure, and more about feel and construction of a solo and something about that live in front of you thing had a big impact on me.
Oh
I
yeah,
think what has
absolutely.
happened now for younger cats is it's a YouTube world and Spotify and YouTube. So I think they feel like everything they need to get is in a YouTube video. But I feel like there are intangibles that you cannot hear or catch in a YouTube video that actually come from seeing interaction on stage, like that you might not have caught. Maybe the horn player played something that that there's some communication that meant something to somebody, and also stuff that would happen that you might not catch on video or listening to records, like certain rhythms that's played all the time, or certain phrases that everybody would know that when this rhythm is played, everybody hits the hit or something.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
there were a lot of times where I wouldn't catch it because I didn't know that was a thing. And now I see that happening all the time
Sure.
when there is a mix of older cats and young cats, and they miss it, and it's just missed.
Hmm.
And some of them I know, I won't speak in any names, going on to be playing, doing some big things, and I know a lot of stuff is missing
Hmm.
because they didn't have that experience.
Sure.
They
Absolutely.
only learned from YouTube video or some records, and didn't have as much respect for what was going on in the community, going and checking out and going. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
anyway,
Yeah, and just
yeah,
even catch someone gives you kind of a weird look if you don't know something, and that can,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
it doesn't. It can be nonverbal. Yeah.
Right, right, right.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, I mean, it sounds like the jazz scene was really great in the '90s. That sounds really
Yeah, it was
amazing.
good. I caught the tail end, I think, of the heyday. I
Hmm.
mean, I think the further you went back, the more it was.
I'm sure.
And I
Sure.
caught kind of the tail end to when that economy thing hit is when we really took a hit too.
Like the 2008 economy.
Was it
Like when
was it that late? I thought it was before that.
well, there were different ones,
It-
yeah. But I guess I don't
yeah,
know if something happened in like around 9/11, or if there was
I think so. I think that's when
really
yeah. I
because it kind
think
of went down a little bit then. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then the jazz clubs didn't really recover
Yeah.
as the the bunches of jazz clubs didn't recover.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing.
And
There's this great, this amazing group of musicians here in Atlanta, but there are not
yeah,
as many places to play as there should be.
right.
Especially places that are
Hmm.
dedicated to actually jazz and listening.
Right, right, right,
'Cause
right,
you go to these
right.
places and everyone's just talking. It's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
loud.
yeah.
So. Um, But you've been playing this. I'm sure the Houston's gig is probably not happening right now, is it?
No, it's not. No.
Yeah. How
Hmm.
long did you guys do that? You guys have been there for a while.
It's been about 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 2010 or 11. I think it was 10
Yeah.
when I started playing in Houston. Yeah,
Gotcha. It seems like a great gig. I mean, it's like you play what you want, and it's at a restaurant, but it's you can at least kind of you choose what you want to play, and you have great musicians with you.
right, right, right. And but yeah, there were what happens is they change out management from time to time.
Hmm.
There's some managers that try to micromanage, but for the most
Oh,
part, For the most part, we play what we want as long as we're on time and stuff. But we still have to you still have to read the room and try to play what's appropriate. But
Sure.
there's a lot of freedom for a restaurant these days.
Yeah, compared to most ones, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Because I've played a couple places and they've gotten on my case about stuff. So yeah,
right.
I definitely
right.
don't play as adventurous as I would like to. But
yeah. What I don't like about it is sitting in is not encouraged.
Oh
Even
yeah,
now, yeah. Even it used to be just other instruments, But now this particular management does not even like musicians who aren't on the gig at that time to sit in.
yeah.
I think they don't really get what's going on because it gets kind of further and further from the from the music, being familiar of what jazz is like. It's
Oh, I
just
know. No, it's crazy. I mean, I played a place down here in downtown Atlanta, and it was like they were like, "We don't want jazz," and I'm like, "Okay." And then I played, we played everything kind of like a bossa nova style, and they're like, "Oh, we like that." I'm like, "Well, that is jazz too." They just
right,
don't know what they want.
right.
So it's difficult, but yeah,
right,
no, I know.
right.
So you worked, obviously play mostly in the jazz realm, but you've worked outside of the jazz world too. You've worked with musicians who are pop and like hip hop artists and stuff like that
Oh
too.
yeah. You read up some stuff.
Oh, I've
Huh?
been trying to read it. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. That's the correct way to be a journalist, man. Kudos to you.
Well, thanks.
Uh, yeah, I was a producer from about uh, 1998, I think it was, till about I kind of quit in 2013. So I
Hmm.
had a pretty long career. That I'm starting to dabble with it now. I've hooked up with a group of guys that have some stuff going on right now. I just started doing that every once in a while.
And how
The
does that
social
work?
distance
Oh, I
thing
know.
makes it difficult.
It's so hard.
Uh,
How does it work? Like, did someone just approach you? Does someone know about your music and then approach you wanting to work on a project?
yeah, he was producing during the time I was producing back then. I I let it go. He kept going, and he now has um, very nice studio and these relationships. But he does not play keys, but he good at programming
Hmm.
beats and engineering sounds and mixing. And so he knew that I played keyboards and have experience with production.
Yeah.
So he contacted me about that would broaden his ability to cover bases, to have somebody who knew harmony and
Oh, sure.
so we already had a relationship, and I knew him to be a good guy, so we just at the beginning of starting to hook that back up. So
That's
I'll
really
be in
cool.
production again, but not as hard as I was,
Gotcha.
unless that takes center stage.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
guess it could be a cool thing career wise if you
yeah,
have
yeah,
if you get credits like songwriting credits and stuff like that. Is a really
right.
positive thing. They need that because I think there's so many artists who are talented, but they don't have that kind of harmonic sense that you
Oh
have.
yeah,
Obviously, you know.
yeah. I agree with that's needed in that industry,
Oh
definitely.
man, yeah, because you hear it. I mean, obviously, people, some of the great artists in hip hop or whatever, you hear great sounds in there, and they're obviously talking to people who know jazz. So that's always
right,
such.
right, right, right.
I mean, I'm not even close to an expert on hip hop, but like just that the jazz element has been an important part of the development of hip hop and pop music. Obviously,
Yeah,
it's all
definitely.
American.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I was always
Definitely.
amazed at some. This is random, but like some of the old stuff we talk about, like Earth, Wind, and Fire and stuff like that. Like those
Oh
guys,
yeah,
they had a real knowledge of jazz. At least the people who were
yes.
writing those songs did. You know.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
yeah,
I definitely love to hear as much jazz influence as possible. Um,
right.
so I want to ask you a couple if you don't mind. I'm just going to throw a couple names your way, and then you can tell me how you can just give me some I guess a couple sentences about that person. I don't know if you mind. Like I was going to just name
Nah, I
some
don't mind.
people.
Yeah.
When I hear you, I hear a lot of Cedar Walton. So I was going to ask you about Cedar Walton, like what he's meant to you as a
Oh
musician.
man, when I got into I loved Oscar Peterson. It was all Oscar Peterson at first. I couldn't nearly play his stuff, but that's all I used to listen to. I used to try to pick up a few things from him, but anyway. So as when my Cedar Walton came later, when I started broadening and realizing, hey, there's other bad stuff too.
Yeah.
So I started checking out cats, and then by that time I was in touch with other jazz musicians. And so my concept is still today is to just play with lane based in the tradition, play, but I wanted to sound different from everybody. The cats I was around at that time weren't hip to Cedar Walton, but Cedar Walton was bad to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my goal was to try to choose some guys that were bad and had a different take on the language and have a different influence on myself that everybody wasn't checking out. I thought that would make me. Little did I know, that's in the microcosm of Atlanta. Of course, on the world scene, cats would check it out, see the water.
Sure.
But the cats around me weren't. So he became one of my main cats. Specifically, I liked the Eastern Rebellion records, and I had almost all of those. And I'm amazed today that there's some stuff that verbatim comes out sometime in my
Well,
playing that when
I've
I
heard
listen to
that.
those records, was that?
I've heard it because I love.
Wow.
I'm obsessed. I love that era, and I
That's
think that's a period where
right,
people, they think about Cedar Walton with Art Blakey and stuff like that, but they don't talk about
right,
the '70s stuff. Oh my
right,
God.
right, 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 right,
And
right.
that's his best stuff as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
no, I could hear that for sure.
Wow.
And just like that, really, he had that sparkling technique and that harmonic sensibility. So I hear that in your playing for sure.
Oh wow. Well, thank you, man. That's
Um,
compliments.
so I'm gonna say another name, a new, much younger person, Jasmine
Okay.
Horn.
Oh man. I think I was one of. It's real funny. I love her. She's awesome. She's it's two people out there kind of on the same level I think same approximate level, which is Jasmine Horn and Cecile Laurent. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna say which is my favorite, but
yeah, but those two are great ones.
yeah, but yeah, she. I think I got hip to her than most Atlanta people that I was around. So I used to come and find YouTube videos and stuff of her and tell people, man, have you heard of her? Have you heard of her? And show these videos and send these videos. Then all of a sudden she emerged and she was huge. Then right after that, she called me for 2 gigs.
Hmm.
At the time, I was playing with Jason Marcellus, the piano player. With Jason, I think he was transitioning out, uh, and Jason was starting to use me, Marcellus. And so she called for both of those gigs. She had heard about me and she had some gigs in the area. So I wanted the gig. I was hoping to play with her and hopefully impress. And because I couldn't believe it the first phone call because I was already a big fan. And then she did the thing at the Grammys and then more people started being hip to her. And then that's when the phone call happened. The two calls back to back. I could not make either gig because my commitment was with Jason, And now, of course, Jason is doing something different.
Yeah.
And Jasmine Horn is back to not knowing who I am anymore.
Oh, I'm sure she does. But no, I love
But
her.
I
I
love,
remember you mentioning her, and I was like, I knew about her, but then I went back and listened to her again. I'm like, oh my God.
yeah, she's amazing.
I mean,
Definitely.
she's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I
Um,
mean, ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah. And I just this is random, but like show that and this is one of the, I think it was in the fall here in Atlanta. It was at the Velvet Note, which I thought you were incredible at, was with Bobby Watson.
Oh,
Oh
oh
my
yeah.
That was like an amazing show.
Man,
I
that
mean,
was
was
one of
that
those
was
nights
that
I will remember.
is
Yeah.
that yeah? Because was it good? It must have been memorable for you too. But it was, I mean, and you in particular, it was like unbelievable. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, it was. You know how it is that sometimes you on, like really
Yeah,
on, and then sometimes
sure.
hopefully you always sound professional, but it might not be as on. So that was one of those nights that was really kind of happening, and he actually hollered at me about wanting to do some stuff with me,
Hmm.
and I was thinking that, oh great, I found another national type of gig that I'm gonna do. Unfortunately, some health stuff arose right after that, and
Yeah,
that took that away. And now that I'm better, the world is shut down.
yeah, I
But
know.
I've
Oh,
had some crazy luck. I've had some good things happen, but I've had some crazy luck too.
yeah.
But
Well, I'm
yeah.
hoping that happens because that was special that night.
Oh,
That was great.
well, thanks,
Um,
man. He has so much knowledge of music. I just
yeah.
have tremendous respect for him and how he sounded. My relationship with Curtis Lundy made that happen.
I was
Cause
going to ask you about because you guys have been collaborating for a long time.
yeah, man. He's been very supportive of me. I love that brother. He's like my older brother. He's been very supportive, and I can't thank him enough. Putting me in certain situations. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that was amazing.
He played on my record too.
Yeah, no, it's a great record.
So thank
Yeah, no, I love that stuff, man. But so what I want to ask you, like, you talk about your record. What's next for you? Are you planning anything in the next year or two, or?
I was shedding. I had 3 records working on uh to record. And I've kind of fallen off the shed because this
Mhm.
whole world shutting down. It's been kind of depressing, and
Yeah, I know
not
it's hard.
depressing, but it kind of pushed that stuff down.
Sure.
Uh, I had 3 records I was developing with 3 different sounds that I was really hard working on, like
Yeah,
2 or 3 months ago and before. And I was going to release them one at a time. One was more of a kind of it was a collaboration, and that's going to be something special. Well, with this vocalist around town, she's an indie pop vocalist with a lot of talent,
really.
real good relationship with harmony, and she's like kind of indie pop, indie rock singer songwriter.
Hmm.
And but she went to Georgia State, and so she knows music, and it comes out in that stuff. But we've been writing together, and we've been developing the sound of mixing jazz with what she does.
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
yeah, then I have a more traditional thing that I had started working on writing and choosing songs. Then I kind of had a more modern take on just still under the straight head. That was going to really deal with what I just went through with, fighting cancer and all of that stuff. It also deals with the more spiritual side of, me getting back closer to God, because that was a wake up call, man. Not that I ever got far away, but I prayed and leaned on God through my experience of that, and that really helped me through. And I feel the need to do a record, an album in tribute to that.
Yeah.
So I had three albums in a row. Work kind of down right now, and I did 2 things too. I hooked up with Justin Barnes, and incidentally, we're doing the project with the pop singer, and he has a great studio. I think that would work better for that project at the place he teaches, which is Mount Perrin.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was going to be recorded there, and the engineer had kind of pop sensibilities and acoustic music sensibilities. So that's kind of how I wanted that to be mixed and approached, not just from a jazz perspective, but with somebody who could mix pop records and record pop records and had experience with live instrument. So I was excited about that. Also, I bought a piano last year, a grand piano,
Cool.
a 6-foot Baldwin grand piano. And what I did is I made a deal with Larry, who has a great studio in his basement.
Sure.
I put my piano over there for him to use and for the music community to have a place to record. Because the place used to be Marlon Patton's spot. I used to love to record over there, but he moved away.
Yeah. I think I
was
saw
hoping
Larry got that tuned up. I saw a video of him getting the piano tuned.
Yes, that's my piano.
It sounded beautiful.
Man,
yeah,
it's great. I haven't even played it since it's been tuned, and so I was hoping that would be the new Marlon Patton spot.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to Marlon's
I
spot?
didn't. I talked about it, but no, I did. And I never actually went there. But no, I've heard so many recordings from his studio.
Yeah.
I know he's a great engineer and a great drummer, but yeah.
Right.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I had that hooked up so I can go and not have to pay so much for studio time and stuff. So I was all set up to have these recordings and do these records this year to come back to the scene. And the pandemic hit.
I know. Well, I can't wait to hear those projects. They sound great. I can't wait to hear you live again too.
Likewise, man. Yeah, I always love your playing, man.
Well, yeah, seriously.
Very much in the tradition.
Well, thank you.
That touches my heart.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah,
evidence of study and checking out. That means the world to me.
Yeah, I can tell. I love that music. So yeah. Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, Louis. Seriously.
Oh,
thank you.
No problem. Glad you're doing this, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just great to hear your insights. So I appreciate it.
Oh, all right.
All right, man. Okay. Well, thanks again.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
And
man.
I really hope to hear you soon. See you in person and hear you soon.
Yeah, likewise. All right, man. We'll play again.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. Please be sure to check out the website, atljazznotes.com, and videos of all the podcasts on our YouTube channel. If you like what you heard, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.